trusting you, Christ, still strikes us awkward and strange. We need to gain a deeper trust in you, a willingness to turn our lives over to your care. Even though we constantly seek to be in charge, even when we know our lives are out of control, we still resist the thought of surrendering to you, God. So we foolishly pretend to be self-sufficient. We don't really know how to let go. We still think God helps only those who help themselves. We still fail to believe that you can remove our flaws and failures. We still continue to doubt that you can transform us. Teach us, Christ, the wisdom, the genius of trusting solely in you.
My son James never quite fit in. He sort of always fell through the cracks. He's not ugly, but I wouldn't call him handsome. No, I must admit, he isn't really handsome. He isn't stupid, but he isn't really all that smart either. When the other young boys would talk of hunting, or fighting, or racing one another, James would just go quiet, painfully quiet. With girls, James was just so shy, painfully shy. Painful. That's how it feels to watch your son be left alone so often, be so isolated, be so unsure of himself, so unhappy. It hurt me deeply to watch him try so hard to fit in, to make friends, to be accepted. At times, my heart just ached to watch him watch the other young men his age laugh and carry on, talking of parties and beautiful women, boasting of strength and their military prowess, or how the future was to be filled with their fame and fortune. James would just sit and stare at them, silent, so obviously filled with that strange mix of loathing and envy, always alone, always watching and listening, always staring, always telling me he wouldn't want to be like them anyway. Shallow braggers, he called them. Maybe you just want to cry sometimes. You just want your children to be happy, to be accepted, to be liked. I remember one day when he was about 10 or 11, some of the kids had cornered him in an alleyway and were making him dance. I'm sure they threatened to pulverize the poor kid. He was so scrawny, so shy, and so he danced. He danced for those idiots, and I saw it all as I returned from the market. I yelled at that quartet of mockers to get away from James, but James' eyes told me he wished he could have just finished the dance. Then they would have left him alone, at least for a day or two. He gave them plenty to laugh about. His humiliation was unbearable to watch. My hurt was unbearable to feel. If I could have, I would have killed all four of them. My anger was so intense, my heart so bloated. A father just dies inside if his son is humiliated like that. You just die. You just die. I'll never forget his face that day, and his eyes, those silent, sad eyes of his. I will never forget it. Never. Never. His eyes were, it was awful. From the day he met Jesus, there was a remarkable change in him. It was almost a complete transformation. James suddenly came alive. He had heard this man speak several times before he ever became one of his band, and he would always sound so excited to tell his mother and me about what Jesus had said. I'm not saying I agree with everything Jesus says or even does, but there's no denying he was good for James, real good. I must admit to some envy of Jesus. I mean, I only wish James could love me the way he so obviously does Jesus. I watched them talk for hours, argue for hours, and then hug. And you could see it in James's eyes. Jesus is his friend, his best friend. Honestly, his first friend. Sometimes I wish I could be that close to him, but I can't. And now he's off and on his own, as it should be, I know. Still, I wish I could know him as well as I know Jesus must. Just one hug. We've never hugged. I've never told the kid how much I love him. I've heard plenty of others condemn Jesus. I must admit, I don't know if he really is the Messiah or not, but to tell the truth, I don't care. I really don't. He's been good for James. In fact, the whole group has been good for him. He looks happy, full of life, full of purpose. My goodness, when we do see the kid, we can't shut him up. He's just filled with stories and tales of their work and their journeys. I don't know about the miracle stuff, but James is absolutely convinced. Anyway, what harm are they doing? They help so many people. They feed folks. They offer love to those whom everyone else finds unlovable. They offer hope. They are gentle, kind, caring, compassionate young men, every one of them. I just don't see the big controversy, the big conflict. Crucify him? I mean, how ridiculous. For what? For being too good? For caring too much? Even if he isn't the Messiah, he sure is a breath of fresh air. I just fail to see what harm they're causing. Anyway, I have zero complaints. For James, he had done wonders. I'm sure they won't crucify him. It will pass over. But what a ridiculous reaction to someone so innocent, so basically good. It really feels terrific to see my son so happy, satisfied, content. He's finally accepted. He finally has friends. It feels so good to see him so confident. I never thought I would say this about James, but he really is an incredible human being. He really is. He's so just in all his dealings, so fair, and I've been unbelievably impressed by his courage. He speaks his convictions regardless of what others think. He stands up for the outcasts, the lepers, the prostitutes, the beggars. And he just seems to have endless energy. I cannot believe how hard they all work, constantly, day after day after day. And they live on nothing, just the barest essentials. I've gone from being a father who genuinely pitied his poor son to being a father who genuinely admires him. Admired. I never, ever believed I would come to admire James, but I do. With my whole heart, I do. Like I said, I don't know about the miracle and Messiah stuff, but I do know this. Jesus has been a miracle for James, a Messiah to his life. Before Jesus, James was just dead, just a lonely, lost, bored young man. To see him now, well, it's just unbelievable. He's so full of life, so genuine, so good. He's a genuinely good man. But Father could ask for more. What God could ask for more. I'll bet those 4 boys who teased James, I'll bet none of them became half the man James has become. Not half. I admire them. I do. Do you know how good that feels? Do you know how worthwhile it makes my life feel? And I owe that to Jesus. I owe it to him. He gave my son what I couldn't. A purpose, a point, a friend. I can't tell you how good it feels to admire your own son, to know he is a good man, one of the best, really. One of the best.